Fantasy football drafts approaching and the preseason winding down this weekend. Here's my running back rankings going into the season. The first running back, Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, he'll be my number one pick overall if I get the number one pick in my fantasy draft. Him on the San Francisco offense, he's just taking it to a new level over the last few seasons. I know he's banged up with a calf right now, and he's had injury concerns in the past, no doubt about it, is Christian McCaffrey. But all around, and the way he fits his San Francisco 49er offense like a glove, he's the number one running back going into the year. The number two, Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Breece Hall, what a monster season it was for him on an offense last year where the Jets had Zach Wilson majority of the season, Tim Boyle at times starting at that quarterback position as well, and they just couldn't move the football. But Breece Hall had over 70 catches, and he wasn't even 100% in the first few games of the year coming off the ACL. So this season with Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup, and boxes won't be as loaded against Breece Hall, even though I think his receptions will go down a little bit. I believe with more help on this offense, better quarterback upgrade, I got Hall at number two, even though I could argue number three, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. Last season was a mixed bag of results in his rookie year for Bijan Robinson, but with Arthur Smith gone and out of town, and now being the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think Bijan Robinson in this whole offense is going to take the next step, especially with Kirk Cousins at the quarterback position. A huge upgrade, obviously, over Desmond Ridder. So going into the year, if you want to take Bijan over Breece Hall, it's very close to me, where I almost put Bijan in that number two spot. So whoever you prefer, it's going to be close. They're both good receivers out of the backfield, both dynamic running backs who have big workloads in between the tackles, even though I know Algier is the backup over there for Bijan Robinson, and he got a lot of work last season. But Bijan going into his second year, it wouldn't surprise me if he's gunning for that number one spot this season. But right now, going into the year, it's pretty close. But I got Breece Hall at the two and Bijan at the three. Number four, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. Consensus says most websites and most rankings, Jonathan Taylor is in that number four spot. But I think Jonathan Taylor, he's going to take a step back, obviously, where I don't have him ranked in the top six over here going into the season. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I know banged up a little bit right now with the knee hamstring issue, but Jahmyr Gibbs, he's a dynamic running back. Last season, we saw some monster games out of him, and he's the type of running back where he don't need 20, 25 touches per game to put up big numbers as Jahmyr Gibbs. He's one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield already, only in his second year. Detroit, they have a high-powered offense. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. David Montgomery, I know he gets a lot of work as well and is going to take goal line, but Jahmyr Gibbs all around, especially in PPR leagues. Once again, I believe he's going to go out there and have a nice season. Number five, Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people worry Barkley's goal line touches are going to go down, obviously, with Jalen Hurts. Push, and his goal line efficiency, getting the ball into the end zone for Jalen Hurts. But Saquon Barkley, he's never been on an offense like this where the boxes aren't going to be loaded with 8 or 9 guys, and there's receivers on the outside who open the whole running game up, like A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert in the middle, and Saquon Barkley, we know he's an effective running back. I know injuries have been a concern for him throughout his NFL career, but to join an offense like the Philadelphia Eagles, where there's going to be less players in the box, like I mentioned, I think it's a big season for Saquon. At number 5, number 6, Kyren Williams of the Los Angeles Rams. So Kyren Williams last season, he came out of nowhere, and he was an MVP for many fantasy owners, helping them win championships. And I actually had him in a few leagues, was Kyren Williams, the hottest pick off the waiver wire, him and his teammate Puka Nacua last season. So this year, he's in this range, about 7th, 8th overall at the running back position. We've seen Kyren Williams, but this season I like him at number 6. He's in a great offense with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay finding innovative ways to get the ball and make things easier for Kyren Williams. And he does it all. Last season, he missed 4 games with Kyren Williams and still in the top 5 in fantasy points at the position. So right now, Kyren Williams, number 6 spot, I'm comfortable taking him over at Jonathan Taylor, over at Derrick Henry. At this point, number 7, Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. So Jonathan Taylor, I know he's going top 10, and the 4th ranked running back in most fantasy leagues going into the on websites like ESPN, Yahoo Sports, Sleeper Pick Draft. But I believe Jonathan Taylor, injuries have been a concern for him. And I know injuries are always a concern for any ball player. It's football, it's physical, you're going to get hit, you're going to have non-contact injuries and all that. But Jonathan Taylor, He's in an offense where Anthony Richardson's back in the lineup, where I think goal line touches, Richardson's going to take a lot of 1 and 2 yard stamper, sneaks in there himself. Taylor, like I said, he really hasn't had a rhythm where he's been a consistent player over the last couple seasons. I know still very young, no doubt about it, is Jonathan Taylor, and a talented running back. But I believe guys like Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who I've ranked ahead of him to the season this year, have a higher ceiling and are better receivers out of the backfield as well than a Jonathan Taylor. So right now, I still Taylor in my rankings. He's a early to mid-second round pick in fantasy drafts. But like I said, those other running backs I'd rather have this season. Number 8, Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. So Derrick Henry, I know he's got tons of miles on his body, and he's taken a beating over the last number of years, is Derrick Henry with the Tennessee Titans. Now he joins up with the Baltimore Ravens, where they're hoping he's the final piece to a Super Bowl victory. Derrick Henry, I think his touches are going to go down a little bit, Henry, where they're trying to save him for the playoffs. And obviously Lamar Jackson running the football 10, 15 times per game. But I could see Derrick Henry score double digits touchdowns this season. He'll get you anywhere from 25, 35 catches on the year, is Derrick Henry at minimum. But I just believe this possibly could be the last big season for him. And this Raven team, they're not going to run him into the ground carrying the football 30, 35 times like the Tennessee Titans did, where he worked into volume most times, because obviously they got a capable quarterback in Lamar Jackson, where in Tennessee it was Ryan Tannehill for most years, and then last season Will Levis, where they didn't want to throw the football a lot, where in Baltimore they're not worried about Lamar's usage. Number 9, Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. So Devon Achane, he's got potential to be a top 5 back this season with his explosiveness and game-breaking ability. Last year, 8 yards per carry. He missed 4 games with Achane and was already one of the top running backs in all pro football. But still, Raheem Mostert's going to get a workload, 50-50 split. But Achane, he's like a Jahmyr Gibbs in my opinion. He don't need 20, 25 touches to put up huge numbers. We saw last season with some big games where he only had 8 to 12 touches as Devon Achane. Mike McDaniel, he knows how to scheme and get this speed in the open field. And that's what I think it's going to happen once again with Achane. If he finishes the season over Taylor and Derrick Henry, no doubt about it, it wouldn't be surprising to me. The only thing with him, obviously, Mostert and the rookie right over there, Achane's going to have those limited touches. When some weeks he's going to have the monster games, and some weeks his numbers will be down a little bit. Number 10, Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So last season, I thought Tank Bigsby was going to get a lot of work for Jacksonville, but obviously that didn't happen. Etienne, he had a solid season. He had a big workload. And I think once again, with Bigsby, he's still there, obviously, only entering his second season. He'll get some work, but Travis Etienne, he could do it all. Catch the football out of the backfield, running between the tackles, which many people didn't think he would be a high-volume running back last season. And this year, I think once again, Etienne is going to have a good season. And now they got Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis, 2 receivers that really stretch the field to go with Christian Kirk, where I think the box will be open a little bit more for Travis Etienne. Him and Trevor Lawrence also were teammates in college. And I like Etienne as a mid-second rounder to late second rounder this season. Number 11, Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Jared McKinnon, he didn't sign with anyone. He's still out there in free agency. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he really hasn't done much in his career with Kansas City. And Pacheco's been a solid running back over the last season and change. Physical back, could catch the football out of the backfield in a high-powered offense with Patrick Mahomes leading the way. Reinforcements at the receiver position, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, even though Brown's banged up. And Pacheco, I think, is a back-end number 1 running back for fantasy owners. Is solid going into the year. Number 12, Joe Mixon of the Houston Texans. So Joe Mixon, the Bengals, they didn't want him anymore. After another great season, it was for Joe Mixon. I know he's getting a little up there in age, and he's got a lot of wear and tear on his body, but Mixon's still one of the better receiving backs in all fantasy football and pro football. He's joining a great offense with C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, one of the best, if not the best receiving core in football. And I believe the boxes are going to be open for Joe Mixon. And like I said, over 50 catches last season and playing with C.J. Stroud that many people didn't even think he was a rookie. The way he's poised and the IQ he has out there on the football field is C.J. Stroud. So right now, Joe Mixon, I think, is a low-end number 1 running back for fantasy owners. And the number 2 back will help fantasy owners in a big way. And I got him having a good season once again in his first year with his new team. Number 13, James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. James Cook, he really came on in the second half last season for the Buffalo Bills, where early in the year he wasn't getting a lot of workload as James Cook. The only thing going into the year, I believe he's not going to be short yardage and goal line back automatically, where Ray Davis, the rookie's going to fit in to that. He's a big physical running back, but Cook, one of the better receiving backs in the league, and he's got a lot of pop and burst as well. And Buffalo with a revamped receiving room, even though it's a lot of young guys. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir still young in this league, and the veteran Curtis Samuel is the top 3 wide receivers going in to the season. I think they're going to lean on James Cook a little bit more on volume and his catching ability, and still in an offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Cook is a solid running back once again this year. 14, Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers. Josh Jacobs last season, it was a down year after he got majority of training camp. And that Raider team as a whole, the offense really couldn't get anything going. Jimmy Garoppolo was a disaster early in the season. Aidan O'Connell, they were game managers for the most part, where teams knew they were going to run. But now Jacobs, he joins this Green Bay Packer team where they got a dynamic offense with Jordan Love leading the helm with a lot of speed with Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Tavian Wicks. But Josh Jacobs, I believe we're still going to see A.J. Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd get some work as well in this offense. And also Josh Jacobs, it was a bad year for him last season. So after a big workload a couple years ago, maybe it affected Josh Jacobs and his numbers are going to go down. But I believe he'll be decent for this Green Bay Packer team. But I'm not expecting numbers he put up a few years ago and is a back-end running back 1. And if you have him as a number 2 on your roster, I would feel more comfortable, especially if you could get him in the 4th round instead of the 3rd. Number 15, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rachaad White, last season, he didn't do much on the ground, but in terms of catching the football and finding the end zone, his numbers were good. Rachaad White for this Tampa Bay Buc team. So the Bucs, new offensive coordinator coming in. Last season, Mike Evans had a monster year for them. Rachaad White in the passing game. Chris Godwin had over 1,000 yards. But I don't know if this offense is going to put up the numbers like they did last season. But Rachaad White is a number 2 running back going in the 4th, 5th round range. I believe is solid versatility still, and there's not much competition. I know Bucky Irving, they drafted this offseason, was Tampa Bay, but he's not going to come in and take a lot of work. And like I said, with his receiving prowess, Rachaad White, he's always going to be a running back in that top 15 to 20 range, I believe. 16, Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, we'll see this year if he really could get things going. I thought after his first season and some big ball games that Kenneth Walker was going to be the next big running back in fantasy football. But last season, injuries and just offense stalling out a lot. And a quarterback carousel. Geno Smith missed a few games. Drew Lock was in there at times where they didn't really open up the offense. And teams were putting 9-10 plays in the box at times versus Seattle. But Kenneth Walker as well, Zach Charbonnet, I believe, is going to get more work this season. So with a new coaching staff, and we'll see if Geno Smith could stay healthy. Kenneth Walker is still in that 4th, 5th round range. As a number 2 running back, I still think he's got good upside. And like I said, we saw the game-breaking ability 2 seasons ago. So we'll see what he does this year. 17, James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals says the weeks went on, Conner's moved up on my rankings. This Cardinal offense is going to be improved big time this season. Adding Marvin Harrison Jr. in the NFL draft. Trey McBride another season under his belt after he broke out in the second half last season. Kyler Murray another year healthier off the ACL. Signing Zay Jones. And James Conner last season, he did have 9 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards on the year. So James Conner, if he could stay healthy, he's a workhorse running back. I know Trey Benson, they brought in the NFL draft, but I like the volume that James Conner is going to get. He's in a dynamic offense where now things are really going to open up with Kyler Murray's running ability, obviously, and have a top-flight receiver like a Marvin Harrison and a top-end tight end in Trey McBride. So I think Conner, things are going to be better for him this season and more running lanes. And like I said, he's a decent receiver out of the backfield as well. 18, Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara, he's been dropping down my rankings slowly over the last few weeks. Is Kamara. I know last season over 70 catches and he missed a few ball games early in the year. Is Kamara, but I just don't feel the pop is there for Alvin Kamara. And also with Taysom Hill supposedly getting more packages into the offense this season. We've seen it a lot anyway with Hill, where he's gotten a lot of goal line work, where they've used him as a gadget guy, catching the football, throwing the football as well. And Alvin Kamara, like I said, he's had a lot of miles on his body. Still one of the smaller backs in the league. I know there's not going to be much competition. Jamal Williams and Miller over there is the other running backs. But it wouldn't be surprising if Williams gets some goal line work as well. So with goal line work possibly out, with Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams there for Alvin Kamara, and his yards per carry have gone down over the last couple seasons. Still, as number 2 running back, I don't think it's horrible for fantasy owners, but the ceiling isn't really that high, I believe, this season for Kamara. 19, Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. So Jones in the offseason, Packers cut him loose, signing quickly with division rival in the Minnesota Vikings. And Jones, I don't know if he's got much left in the tank, and a lot of injuries over the last couple seasons. And Jones is good to miss 2 to 4 games per year, where it's just always a hamstring or a knee with Aaron Jones. And that joins an offense with Sam Darnold. Well, I think teams, they're going to load the box and have Sam Darnold try to beat them in the passing game, where there's not going to be a lot of running room for Aaron Jones. I know competition isn't that heavy in the backfield, where Ty Chandler, even though I thought he was decent last season, is going to be the backup running back for Aaron Jones. But like I said, he's got a lot of miles. He's had injury problems, and also with a quarterback who hasn't done much in the NFL in Sam Darnold. Teams, I think, are going to force this Minnesota Viking team to throw the football, even with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison at the receiver position. And Aaron Jones is going to have trouble this season putting up big numbers like we've seen in past, but still going in that 4th, 5th round as a number 2 running back. I think it's fine to have Aaron Jones this year. 20, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. I know they brought in Antonio Gibson in the offseason, was this New England Patriot team, but Stevenson got the contract extension. This offense can't get any worse than they were last season. Drafting Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, they brought in as well. We'll see who's named the starter going into week 1. As of now, time recording this, no starter has been named. But Stevenson, a couple years ago, he had over 50 catches. And I think if this offense could be halfway decent, the workload will be there for Stevenson. Catching the football will be there, even though I know Gibson will be in there as well on 3rd down and passing downs. But I think Stevenson has a bounce-back season. And at number 20 as a number 2 back, I think he's decent going into the year. 21, David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get more work this season. But David Montgomery, I don't think he's going to get phased out of this offense at all. And he's going to be more short yardage and goal line back, where last season he obviously had that role with 13 touchdowns on the year was Montgomery. So Montgomery is a fringe number 2 running back for fantasy owners, and someone who's still going to get his 12, 15 touches per game. And like I said, the short yardage work is David Montgomery. He's a solid running back going in that 5th, 6th round, where he can help fantasy owners in those aspects of the game. But in terms of having a big ceiling, I just don't see it with Jahmyr Gibbs there, unless obviously Gibbs missed time and Montgomery will get a full workload. 22, Zamir White of the Vegas Raiders. I like Zamir White as a possible breakout candidate this season. And to go into the year, let's say you get him in that 5th, 6th round as your number 2 running back, I think Zamir White will be all right. He's going to have short yardage work. I think passing downs he's most likely not going to have for this Las Vegas Raider team. But he's a physical running back, and we saw last season in the few games he got playing time when Jacobs was out towards the end of the year. Zamir White was the more impressive back, running behind the same offensive line Jacobs was all season. And he's a guy that as well that's going to run you over. He likes the physicality. And I think this season, Zamir White could be a solid running back, even though going into the year, I got him in 22, 23, Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. Raheem Mostert, what a season it was for him last year. Stayed healthy and had 21 total touchdowns, 18 rushing on the year. But this season, I think just a bit his workload's going to tick down. Where last year, he had over 200 carries, was Raheem Mostert. I think this season, 175, 180 range. With Devonte Chain, he's going to get more work. I believe in this offense and the rookie right they brought him. But Mostert's still going to get goal line carries, I believe. He still could catch the football 20, 25 times out of the backfield this season. And he's got a lot of burst and breakaway speed. When you're on a high-powered offense where it's quick hitting slants, quick deep balls, and fade routes with receivers like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the running backs, they're going to get these running lanes. And they're going to have room to work. And with the scheme of Mike McDaniel, I think Mostert, once again, I'm not saying he's going to have 21 touchdowns, but anywhere 10 to 15 range, I don't believe is far-fetched. And as a number 2 running back for owners, is still solid. Number 24, DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears. Last season with the Eagles, rushed over 1,000 yards with Swift. I thought he had a pretty good year with some big games. In some games, yes, he disappeared. Now entering his first season with the Bears, where they've loaded up in the offseason, drafting Caleb Williams, drafting Roman Abdunze, trading for Keenan Allen, signing DeAndre Swift. So this offense is loaded, no doubt about it, over there in Cole Kmet, tight end for the Chicago Bear team. DeAndre Swift, if he's going to be the starting running back and get a good 75%, 80% of the touches. I know Herbert and Roscoe Johnson is still there, but we've seen these guys over the last few seasons, and I don't think they're going to bring Swift in on a decent deal where running back contracts have gone down over the last few seasons if they're not going to use him. And like I said, Caleb Williams is a rookie, and I don't think this bad team wants him throwing the football 35, 40 times as well. So Swift as a solid number 2 running back going in that 6th, 7th round range. I like to see 25 Jalen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when Warren, he's banged up right now with a hamstring injury, but Mike Tomlin's downplayed, and I think Warren's going to take over more this season. Last year, towards the end, there was more 50-50 with him and Najee Harris, but I think Najee Harris, he just doesn't have it over the last couple seasons. I know his rookie year came in and he was having a monster year, Najee Harris, rushing over 1,000 yards, having big plays, but the burst isn't there. He's not a good receiver out of the backfield. Jalen Warren, he could run in between the tackles, even though he's a smaller back. Still one of the better receiving backs as well in the league, over 50 receptions last season. And now we'll see who's at quarterback. If it's Russell Wilson or Fields, no one named yet, time of recording this. But I believe Jalen Warren, if he's ready week 1, we're going to see a 50-50 split, but like I said, more value than Harris, where he's a better receiver out of the backfield. 26, Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders. I thought Brian Robinson, he was solid last year, especially in the second half of the season when Antonio Gibson was phased out of the offense. Now you're in an offense where you got a quarterback who can move the football and make things happen with Jaden Daniels. Even though Sam Howell, I thought, was a gunslinger, but towards the end of the year, last season, it did Howell in, and they benched him. But in my opinion, he's a 3-down back. He could run in between the tackles. He showed he could catch the football out of the backfield and make people miss in the open field. And this season, what an upgraded offense, and Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. I think Robinson, if I went into the year with him as my number 2 running back on my roster, I wouldn't be scared off by that at all. And I think he could produce is Robinson. Just the only thing, Austin Eckler is back there, and I'm not going to think Austin Eckler, after one down season, is just going to fall off and not do anything at all. But Robinson, I still believe, will get 60% of the work in the backfield for this Commander team, especially the goal line work. But he's definitely a running back that's right there as that number 2 fringe option. 27, Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. So him and Tajay Spears, it's neck and neck over there, where I believe these guys have put up similar value, or Tajay Spears might even pass him. But going into the season, I'll give Tony Pollard the nod just a bit, getting a nice contract in the offseason. I still believe 50-50 split for the most part between Spears and Pollard, where Pollard has more experience in between the tackles and Tajay Spears has more experience catching the football, even though he did get work towards the end of the year with Derrick Henry there in between the tackles as well. But with a young quarterback and Will Levis, both these players are going to get a lot of work, I believe, where they're not going to want Will Levis throwing the football 35, 40 times. And all the receiving core is solid over there in Tennessee as well with DeAndre Hopkins, bringing in Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks. So right now, it's a pretty solid offense, I believe, for the Titans. And I believe these running backs are on that running back 2 fringe flex options at 27, 28, 29, Chase Brown. The Cincinnati Bengals, there's been a lot of good reports coming out of training camp with Chase Brown, and he's been moving up the ranking board on these websites over the last few weeks, and even moving up my ranking board, coming in before the preseason and stuff. Zach Moss I had as the higher running back out of the 2 in the backfield, but Chase Brown's going to be a better receiver out of the backfield off the bat, I believe, than Zach Moss. He's got more explosiveness as well in the open field, even though Zach Moss, no doubt about it, played great last season in times when he filled in for Jonathan Taylor early in the season. And then once Taylor got that workload back, he took a back seat to him. But Chase Brown, going that 8th, 9th round range, like I said, could catch the football out of the backfield. If he gets in the open field, one of the quicker backs as well in the league. And now with Joe Mixon gone, he's going to get some opportunity where I believe him and Moss will be in a 50-50 split. Number 30, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like I mentioned early in the video, Najee Harris, his speed hasn't been there. He's not a good receiver out of the backfield. And Harris, I know he's had some good games here and there, but his ceiling is really capped at the most part in PPR leagues. Anywhere from 12, 18 fantasy points is Najee Harris. He's not going to catch a whole lot of balls. His workload over the last season and change has gone down with Jalen Warren emerging. And now, let's say Justin Fields does start for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. That's even going to be more running, especially within the 10-yard line, where he's going to take that goal line work as Fields, where he just take the football himself. So Harris, with those factors, and I just don't see a high ceiling for him. I have him as a low-end two-back flex option this season. Number 31, Devonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Devonte Williams, last season, I thought he was pretty decent in an offense that really couldn't do anything for the most part over there in Denver. Williams, he caught the football at a decent rate, had over 700 yards rushing, found the end zone a few times. This year, going into the year, still the same cast of running backs: Samaje Perine, Jaleel McLaughlin. They brought in the rookie James as well for this Denver Bronco team. But Devonte Williams, I still believe, could be a decent running back. And even with him, if I went into the season with him as my number two back, you could do worse, because Williams, he'll have some ball games where he'll put up 15, 17 fantasy points. And this Bronco team, I don't think they're going to want to throw the football a whole lot. Try to win ball games on smash mouth football, running, and playing good defense with the rookie Bo Nix starting going into the year. So Devonte Williams, another year healthier coming off the ACL. And the starter over there in Denver in preseason, he's got the first looks and touches. I think Williams will be all right this season. 32, Austin Eckler of the Washington Commanders. It's funny, a lot of these websites and stuff have wrote Austin Eckler totally off. And I'm not writing him off totally, but just the only thing is he's not going to get goal line work in Washington, but he's still going to be a decent receiver out of the backfield as Austin Eckler. And I don't think in one season he's totally washed as Eckler. I know running backs, a snap of a finger sometimes, it just goes once you get all that workload. And I know Eckler's one of the smaller backs in the league, but he's still one of the toughest guys as well. 2 years ago, he's one of the best players in fantasy football. And I think with Cliff Kingsbury, he's going to find ways to get Eckler the football and put him in positions to produce. So right now, Austin Eckler going 9th, 10th round, I've seen in a lot of fantasy drafts. I believe he still can help fantasy owners, and that's why he's cracked my top 35, 33. Zach Moss of the Cincinnati Bengals. So like I mentioned, him and Chase Brown, most likely a 50-50 split in the backfield over there in Cincinnati, with Brown being the more explosive back, better receiver out of the backfield. But Zach Moss last season, he had some pop ball games and some games where he rushed over 120 yards as well when he was with the Indianapolis Colts. And then obviously Taylor re-signed that big contract, and Moss, he was the backup once again. But I believe going into the year, Zach Moss, as someone coming off your bench, can help fantasy owners, is a good depth piece and filling in on bye weeks. 34, Devin Singletary of the New York Giants, as Saquon Barkley left in free agency, and the Giants replaced him with Devin Singletary. And Singletary last season, he had some good games over there in Houston where he overtook Dameon Pierce towards the middle of the season, and a few games where he rushed over 150 yards in those. So right now he's in an offense where there's not much going. Daniel Jones hasn't looked good last season before he got hurt. Preseason hasn't looked good, but Malik Neighbors, the only bright spot for the most part on that Giant offense. I think Singletary with Daniel Jones struggle. I believe the Giants want Daniel Jones throwing the football over 30 times a game, even though they're going to be trailing early and often. I think Singletary could carve out a decent role where he's getting 15, 18 touches a week. I know they got the rookie Tracy there as well and brought in Joshua Kelly, but I still believe Singletary will be the starter. But a low-end 2 running back to flex option at best. 35, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, if Nick Chubb was 100% healthy and ready to go coming off the MCL and ACL, then you would put him in the top 10 this season. But right now, it's just a question mark with Nick Chubb, and who knows if he's going to be 100% coming into the season. So ADP and a lot of drafts, I've seen Nick Chubb go 9th, 10th round. And if you could get a lottery ticket like Nick Chubb and hope he turns things around and gets healthy, he could put up a big season. But I believe with the emergence of Jerome Ford last year, they're going to ease Nick Chubb back into this offense. Is this Cleveland Brown team? They traded for Jerry Jeudy, who I believe they're going to want to throw the football a little bit more. Deshaun Watson's healthy and ready to come back, and they're expecting a good year out of him. So with the question marks and the injury to Nick Chubb, and with this offense loading up with receivers and having David Njoku at tight end, I don't know what his outlook's going to be. So right now I'm going to be conservative, and I have him at 35, 36, Gus Edwards of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Gus Edwards last season, he scored double-digit touchdowns, and I think it was a product of that Baltimore offense where you don't know where to look and who to cover with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, who emerged as a rookie. So Edwards, I don't believe he's going to put up that production this season. J.K. Dobbins, his former teammate over there in Baltimore, followed him to Los Angeles, where it wouldn't be surprising if it's a 50-50 split between these two running backs. So right now, Gus Edwards, well, he's going in those later rounds, and he's a good flyer for your third or fourth running back on your fantasy roster, where I still believe he's going to get short yardage but not put up the numbers like he did last season with Dobbins over there in Vidal. He's a low back 3 flex option. Number 37, Jonathan Brooks of the Carolina Panthers. So many factors why I'm low on Brooks going into the year. He's out the first 3-4 weeks of the season. There's still competition with Chuba Hubbard over there for the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, Miles Sanders signed an off-season contract a couple years ago, but they could cut him loose anytime they want. But Jonathan Brooks, like I said, even if he comes back week 3, week 4, he's not going to be ready to be productive, I believe, and have a full workload by week 7, week 8. He's coming off an ACL injury as Jonathan Brooks. He's a rookie. This Panther team, they're not going to go anywhere once again this year. And let's say they come out of the gate 0-3, 0-4, and then Brooks returns. I don't think they're going to want to run this kid into the ground and once again try to get a high draft pick and build up for next season. So like I said, with the injury and this Panther team not going to be competitive and good once again most likely this year, I don't see Jonathan Brooks having a huge impact, where I've seen him in the top 25 on some rankings, where right now he's a back end of this list running back. 38, Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys. I believe Rico Dowdle is going to be the man over there for Dallas. I know Ezekiel Elliott, he returned after playing 1 season in New England. Cowboys signed him up to a contract, but Zeke's best days are behind him, and that's why the Cowboys didn't want to pay him the big deal anymore and cut him loose last offseason just to bring him back. I know Royce Freeman they brought in, but Rico Dowdle, he's been in this Cowboys system now 4 or 5 seasons in Dallas, where he's going to get an opportunity, I believe. Last season, at times, he looked like the more effective back in terms of yards per carry in between the tackles than Tony Pollard. And the Cowboys, they just didn't have a problem of Tony Pollard going, even though I know they got to re-sign CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, but I think Rico Dowdle, in an offense that's still going to move the football and put points on the board, could possibly be a breakout running back and someone who I would target in that 10th, 11th round. But right now, going into the year, I still believe Zeke's going to get work, and it'll be a 50-50 split. 39, Zach Charbonnet of the Seattle Seahawks. I thought Charbonnet would get more work last season, but I like Charbonnet as a possible breakout running back this season, where he could catch the football out of the backfield. Runs in between the tackles, big physical back is Charbonnet. And this Seattle Seahawks team last season in the draft took him in the 2nd round. So I know Kenneth Walker, he's there. He's been pretty decent so far the first few years, but a whole new coaching staff and one Walker injury, Zach Charbonnet could step into a big role. But right now, going into fantasy drafts, he's in that 10th, 11th round range, and the 40th and final running back rankings. Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns. So like I said, Nick Chubb, we don't know if he's going to be ready week 1. But even if he is, this Brown team, they went out, got Jerry Jeudy. They got Njoku, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore in that receiving core. And Deshaun Watson back, and we know he runs the football as well. So I believe Jerome Ford. Last season, we saw some good games and a lot of breakaway runs for Jerome Ford. But this year, I believe 50-50 split if Chubb's ready week 1. Ford, a good receiver out of the backfield, better than Nick Chubb as well. And this Brown team, they've always had 2 running backs running, where usually it was Nick Chubb 70-30 with Hunt. But going into this year, I believe Chubb and Ford 50-50 if Chubb is back week 1. If not, Jerome Ford would move up a little bit, but he's another back going in that 10th, 12th round range. So that's the top 40 running backs I'm ranking going into the 2024 fantasy football season.